Hi, welcome back. In-game live pro football game day here on the grid. Hour number 4 of our 4-hour extravaganza. Boy, a lot happening. Touchdowns by the bushel in our last break here. It's been pretty consistent since we come on air, Joe and I, over the last 3.5 hours. Seems like at least every other time, literally, that we've gone to break, we've had points being scored. That's the case here in both games. Before we bring in Joe and our second guest, Steve Merrill from WagerTalk.com. First up, I told you before the break, Lamar Jackson, awful interception, only to be outdone by Russell Wilson, an even awfuler interception. His was the return for a touchdown. So Baltimore with that defensive touchdown, we cashed that ticket, Joe. We also cashed the interception ticket for both Lamar now and Russ. So Baltimore leading at 31-17 early fourth quarter. And then Texas goes right down the field. They score a touchdown. We saw that 38-24 with the extra point. So they're now back up 2 scores after Clemson, down big, had cut the deficit to 1. 14.5 and 69.5 are your numbers there. So with that, let's bring in Steve Merrill. You hear and see him all the time here on the grid, his home, WagerTalk.com. You get all his picks, all his great picks, and he's got a full boat of everything. WagerTalk.com. Look for his icon and fire away. Steve, what's going on tonight? How are you?
Scotty, Joe, great to see you. Happy Festivus to the rest of us. And yeah, it was weird having the daytime NFL, but maybe it is because of the playoffs. I don't know. I mean, they've spotlighted that Tennessee-Ohio State game, and I do think that's going to be the best matchup. You know, we've seen blowouts so far, and it looks like we're on our third way to another favorite covering and winning by double digits.
Yeah, Clemson looked like they were able to put some resistance up there in that third quarter, but now with Texas answering back, 38-24 game. Are you going to look at jumping in live on anything right now, or are you just going to say this one's done?
In-game line's right around 14.5 plus money, so they're really saying that this is probably where the total is going to land, is at a 14-point margin. I will say that I don't think Clemson has a lot of backdoor cover potential. This is something I pointed out in the pregame analysis here. So if you look at their numbers on the season, they're actually a below-average passing team. They're about 1.1 yards per pass worse than their opponents faced. So I do think they're going to have some tough time catching up from behind here. It would be Texas or pass for me. The 14.5 plus money is obviously an ugly number because they've got to score again. I think they have it pretty much priced right. But Texas will advance. And don't forget, Joe, coming into today, they were favored to win the national championship in a lot of books because they have an easier second-round matchup, and they were the biggest favorite in this round. So the playoffs, I'm glad they're here. I've been a proponent for decades. But it's a little lackluster. And you look at some of the teams sitting out of the top 16. Had they done 16 instead of 12, we'd have Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina. So I think sooner than later, we're going to see a 16-team field pretty soon.
I was going to ask you then before we get to the game tonight, a lot of people on the fence here. People say Indiana, SMU, because they didn't play well, we should eliminate them. But does that mean cut back on teams, or does that mean, well, we'll just keep them, but add on the borderline Mississippi, Ole Misses, and Alabamas of the world?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're ever going to cut back, right? Inflation is here to stay in the economy, and it's here in college football as well. We went from 4 to 12. We'll go to 16. They're not going to eliminate those. And look, the NCAA tournament did it, right? They had a couple new conferences, bottom feeders, and they went to 68 teams because they didn't want to give up any of the at-large bids because of the automatic bids. Same situation here. And look, I've called for this for years now. I think it's going to still happen. We're going to have 2 monster conferences with it's going to be like the AFC and the NFC. It's going to be the SEC versus Big 10/Big 12 ACC, and it's going to be like 16 teams in each. Because look at it right now. The teams that all got left out that I mentioned were powerhouse SEC teams, and they are probably truly better than half the teams in this field.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Now, looking at tonight's game, Tennessee taking on Ohio State. We saw Penn State with a big win over SMU. It looks like Texas is going to get the win over Clemson. How much is home field advantage playing into your handicapping tonight for Ohio State, or is it?
Not as much as you would think. I've heard reports that Tennessee's bought up a ton of tickets here. So I do think Ohio State will have a home field advantage still. But I'm basically just, giving them a couple points like I have all season. Home field's really, in both the NFL and college football in the regular season, been worth less than ever. With that said, we've seen the favorites maybe go 3-0 against the spread. They're going to go 3-0 straight up so far this week. I actually like Ohio State tonight. It was down to -7 this afternoon, and I thought that would happen because Tennessee is, ding, ding, red flag alert, a big public dog in this game. And at 7.5, I think there's some sharp money on Ohio State. That 7 was showing this afternoon minus $1.15. Now it's 7.5 in a lot of spots. So I do think this is a sharp square divide. Wise guys are on Ohio State, public more so on Tennessee. If you can get -7 or less, I like Ohio State here. I like the fact they're off that Michigan loss. They actually might be the best team in the nation. Don't forget, they were a 3-point road favorite at Oregon and a 3-point road favorite at Penn State this year. That's how good they are. And I think they're the team to beat. And if they get by Tennessee tonight, they might win the whole thing.
Steve, not necessarily a gambling question, but just your thoughts. I mean, I've heard people suggest that Ryan Day's job is on the line.
Right.
If they were to lose, considering they've lost 4 straight to Michigan, they would lose back-to-back home games, obviously. I mean, I don't know. Be careful what you ask for, right? I mean, just look at Alabama. Are they the same team without Nicky Quick? Not that he was fired, but clearly not. I mean, he's done a good job of keeping his team and bringing in the recruits among the top 2, 3, 4 teams in the country. I mean, do you really think his job is on the line?
Well, that's why Joe's question about home field advantage was interesting, because that is something I've been seeing, is that his job might be on the line. A lot of Tennessee fans are coming. Some of the Ohio State fans might be booing him tonight if they get down early. Right. I think it's ridiculous, but Scott, as you know, those are the times we live in, right? I think this is maybe the best team in the country. And if they do lose tonight, like you said, their coach might be gone. But then again, you can make an argument, if you are the best team in the country, you shouldn't lose tonight. The Michigan loss, though, is interesting because if you really look at it, if they win tonight, it's going to be a benefit because they didn't have to play the extra game, didn't have to go against Oregon in the championship. They're coming in probably more focused, extra week of prep. The downside is they didn't get the bye. They've got a tough opponent tonight. Otherwise, I think it could be setting up really good for the Buckeyes.
Yeah. They might have lost to Oregon anyway and not got the bye, right? Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, that exactly. And would that have knocked them out? That's what I was wondering. An additional loss? Right. I don't think it would have. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what's your faith here in Will Howard? He has been turning over that ball. Do you think Tennessee can get that interception on him?
I think the big difference in this game is that both defenses are good. We saw the total actually go from 46.5 to 47. But I actually think Ohio State is the better offense, and that's why they will win this game. And, you know, you think of Tennessee as an explosive offense. They put up 190 points their first 3 games in September, those non-conference games. And then if you look in 7 of their next 8 games, 7 of their first 8 conference games, they scored 28 or less in 7 of those 8. So they're really not as explosive as they looked early in the season against quality teams. I do have maybe some question about Ohio State. Michigan obviously shut them down, but they put up 38 on Indiana. They put up a lot of points against some good teams, 31 at Oregon. I think they can win this game with both offense and defense.
Won't hold you to it, but just your initial thoughts. Penn State 10.5 over Boise State, and then Georgia 1.5 over Notre Dame.
Yeah, and here again, Penn State was like 3rd or 4th in the future odds. Texas was favored. You know, Penn State was like 3rd or 4th, and they had to play the extra round. That's why this whole thing is just so silly, because obviously Arizona State and Boise is who you want to get. That's a big number for Penn State, but Franklin, as we saw again today, he beats up on weaker teams. I will say this about Boise State. The Westgate told me this summer. Art DeCesar, we have on Wager Talk a lot, said there's a lot of sharp futures on Boise State season wins over, national championship. This is back during the summer. I would think they're starting to hedge out on some of those now, but that was obviously a good call.
Okay.
Yeah, I wonder. Go ahead, Sid, go. My bad.
No, it looks like we might have a scoring alert. Do we?
Okay.
Nope.
Do you get music for that one?
Maybe
I want
not.
to hear the music like you
Maybe
had for
not.
Texas.
I just seen the graphic. Okay, I don't know. Maybe we don't.
Okay, I see Clemson 3rd and goal from the 1. Steve, great job as always. Check out all his picks. WagerTalk.com. Great to be Carl. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back in-game live, Pro Football Game Day here on the grid. Scott and Joe for another hour and 50 minutes or so. As we welcome back Steve Burrows, gracious enough to join us for a second segment since it is Pro Football Game Day. Let's talk a little NFL football. We got the one game going on that looks like it's all but over, Steve, 31-17. Baltimore's just kind of running out the clock now. They may tack on another touchdown. They got it at the Pittsburgh 12. So we'll leave that. Well, you know what? Let me go to that one. So they're going to be tied. Baltimore is still going to be technically behind Pittsburgh in a head-to-head tiebreaker situation, but how did you envision this game playing out? You surprised, and ultimately, who do you see winning the AFC North?
So I had a strong best bet at wager talk for my clients on the over. So it's always nice when there's cash early. And then I did a free play video for the side and used the Ravens actually -6.5 a couple days ago. It was 7 today at kickoff, and that's another where I think the public was leaning a little bit towards the dog, yet the line rose higher to a key number. And I even said in the video, like 6.5, 7 for a series that's been dominated by the underdog, always seems to be decided by 3 or less. It was a contrarian call, but you look at that earlier meeting about a month ago, Baltimore had 2 touchdowns, missed the 2-point to force overtime. Pittsburgh had no touchdowns in the game. Now they had 6 field goals, that's why they won. But, I thought last week the Eagles were in a good spot. Pittsburgh was maybe the most public dog I'd seen all season last week against the Eagles. I'd love to fade those public dogs. And, they're having trouble stepping up in class. We'll see if they bounce back next week. And, at the break, I figured it out, guys. They both play next Wednesday, Christmas Day. All 4 of these teams, they switch the home road, and they play each other. I think that's why the game's kicked off a little bit earlier today on Saturday. And I actually like how the NFL is doing this. It's Kansas City at Pittsburgh, Baltimore at Houston. So the 2 road teams get home games, and they play the other opponent. I think it makes that short week very fair for everybody.
Yeah, going to be some great Christmas Day matchups there. Looking at tomorrow's slate, the biggest favorite on deck tomorrow is the Buffalo Bills. They're laying 14.5 points versus the New England Patriots. Now, is this something you like to get into, laying those double digits with a team like the Buffalo Bills?
Normally, I don't really play a lot of these games, Joe, with the double-digit lines for or against. I just think it gets tricky because obviously Buffalo's the better team. They should be able to win by margin. But what I do like in the NBA a lot, more so in the NBA than the NFL, is you look at situational plays. And this is one of those rare situational plays in the NFL where I'm willing to back a bad team. I don't normally take these ugly dogs. We know that, the public has done quite well with favorites this year, blowing out bad teams. But you look at this matchup. If New England could somewhat hold their own here, I think it's a really bad spot for Buffalo. It is so hard to have your A game each and every week especially in the NFL where there's so much parity. They are coming off tremendous games, actually. I mean, if you go all the way back to a month ago, they had the Kansas City game. That was a huge home win. They had that snow Sunday night divisional game to clinch the division against San Francisco by winning that game. And then what really sets it up for me is the two high-scoring games the last 2 weeks. Against the Rams, 86 points combined. Last week, 90 points, and they get the win. Back-to-back road games, and now they're at home laying 2 touchdowns. It just doesn't look like a great spot. Hold your nose, take the Patriots at plus 14 or more.
Yeah, classic letdown spot, Steve. It really is. How about the monster game? Philadelphia laying 3.5 at Washington.
Yeah, so I guess you have not my Washington Commanders, right? Future Redskin. The logo's been approved, so I can hold that beanie up
shirt
now.
On. You're really set. You wear that.
Yeah, that goes well with the Santa shirt. And if you see Steve's stocking is hung with care in the memorabilia behind me, so we're getting ready. I grew up as a season ticket holder at RFK in the 80s and 90s, so it's hard for me to get behind the Commanders. Okay. But this is a decent team. And, Scotty, I'll say I think it's another situational spot here that's bad for the Eagles. I mean, Philly's obviously the better team. They might be the team to beat right now in the NFC, but they're also coming off some really big games. And another aspect here is just a month ago, these two teams played that Thursday night game on Prime. And, the Commanders actually needed the late score to get to within 8. But keep in mind, they were winning outright after the first, second, and third quarters. They just kind of fell apart there in the fourth for about 10 minutes. I think Philly regresses a little bit here. And the look-ahead line a week ago was 3. Philly looks great against Pittsburgh, like I said. Now it's 3.5. And that might only be a half point, but there's about a 9 to 10% chance Philly wins by exactly 3. So I think we have about a 9 to 10% better chance of cashing now with the Commanders at plus 3.5. So not my Washington Commanders are my Washington Commanders this Sunday, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally makes sense out there. Is there any games where you look and you just want to completely avoid at all costs? We know the Raiders, they're a favorite there, and this team would love to get a loss for those draft picks. At least their fans would. Hard to tell the players not to get the win. And then the New York Giants as well. 8.5-point dog versus the Atlanta Falcons. Anything that you're looking at where you just want to avoid, or anything that you really like this weekend?
Yeah, I think in general, Joe, most teams don't toss the towel in the NFL. And for the reasons you said, you go out there, you better have your head on a swivel or you're going to get hurt. It's a very physical game. Yeah. So I think they'll be ready to play. We all thought Jacksonville had tossed the towel after the 52-6 loss. Now that's the team playing the Raiders here. So you can always kind of make a case for or against why teams might show up. But I do agree with you. Some games I just leave alone. And the Jacksonville Raiders game, that's one of them. It's like trying to handicap a bad horse race. So there's other games to choose. The one big edge you have as a sports bettor is that you can pick and choose, whereas they have to put lines on every game. You find those 2 or 3 spots where you disagree with them. That game's ugly. Atlanta, with the backup quarterback situation, maybe that's a spark since they're switching quarterbacks. It's 8.5 now. I would say Atlanta might not be a bad teaser play, getting them down to minus 2.5. So if you are going to play that game, Atlanta on a 6-point teaser down to that key number of 2.5 is probably the best option. But 2 games with a lot of uncertainty as far as I'm concerned.
How about Minnesota laying 3 at Seattle?
Yeah, by the way, Jacksonville plus 2 up to plus 8 is an excellent teaser. So Jacksonville, Atlanta teaser on 2 games I'm not touching, but that's actually not a bad move. I do like Seattle on this one, Scott. This is another one of those fade the public situations. And like I said, I don't like backing bad teams. And there's 6 games I use for my fade the public video, wagertalk.com this weekend. But the only quality team we get by fading a favorite play, and that's Minnesota, by the way, is Seattle. So I do think Seattle's worth a look. Strong best bet last week on Green Bay for my clients at Wager Talk. Thought that was a bad spot for the Seahawks. 4 straight outright underdog wins. Sunday Night Football. Packers very underrated off the loss. That was a play against. I think this week is actually a play on for Seattle. We're getting some value now at plus 3.
Yeah, that is a classic opposite pick. I must say, I think the public generally speak, the Vikings, they're playing great, this, that, and you have you, and people not buying into Seattle. So I fully understand that. Definitely fade the public there. Steve, great job as always. Appreciate a couple extra minutes with you. Check out his picks, wagertalk.com. The great Steve Merrill. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win
because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all, because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. In-game live, Pro Football Game Day here on the Grid. Again, thanks to Steve Burrow for joining us there for a couple of segments. Check out his picks at wagertalk.com. So let's go back to the football scene here, Joe. We still got the NFL and the college game both winding down. Neither one really in doubt. 2-minute warning in the NFL game. Baltimore 34-17. Don't even know if FanDuel, are they offering your lines on that one? Let me go to live now. Right now, it is no, everything's locked. Same thing with Texas Clemson, 38-24. 2 minutes left to go in that one as well. Oh no, they just popped up a Pittsburgh one, plus 16.5 at plus 940. Yikes! Oh no, they just took it away. They teased you.
Yeah. As soon as they gave it out, it just completely disappeared off there. I would have grabbed it, plus 16.5 at plus 940. So that would have been a nice one to have. Do you think they'll pop something else up? I doubt they do.
I doubt it.
13.
Yeah. If it was first down, maybe. But knowing it's fourth down, I guess they figure if you bet they weren't offering you a no. It was only the yes. You wonder why. Like both of our sites, right? You're 3,000 miles away from me. So both popped it up there for what? A second? If that 2 seconds, maybe, right? So I wondered, did someone fall asleep at the wheel? Well, why is it up there for a couple of seconds and they yank it down right away? I was curious about that. But
it's really interesting. You think at least a couple minutes, right? Like a couple minutes sitting there, not
at least 15, 30 seconds to be able to put it in.
Yeah.
But it's been a tough loss. Both these teams have to play Christmas Day. I get all that, but it'll be third game in 11 days for Baltimore, and now all of a sudden they got to play Kansas City, or Pittsburgh rather. And, all of a sudden their lead in the AFC North, as we talked about before, is gone. And they lose to Kansas City. Baltimore plays, they got a tough game, too, at Houston Christmas Day. So it won't be easy for them. But it's kind of shifting, towards Baltimore for winning this division.
Yeah, it really is. And I was just looking to see if we've got any lines up right now, Scott, for those Christmas Day games and where we're looking to initially think we should go on them. Right. I'm looking to see if I can find them here. I'm not getting any of the Wednesday games. I'm just seeing Thursday games with these games still going on right now.
Well, that's kind of weird.
With this one,
they would give us Thursday games.
Really
Wednesday, because the games are going on. Yeah, that's true. So, they wouldn't want to do that. So as far as the college football, Pittsburgh did not get a first down. So Baltimore ball, I'm sure they'll just take a couple of knees. I doubt Pittsburgh down 3 scores is going to be using any timeouts. So 34-17. Once that does go final in a minute here, I'll give you all the numbers for the prop players out there. We'll recap some of our plays. Pretty much the same thing, although it's 4th and 1 for Clemson or for Texas at the Clemson 40-yard line. Minute 44 left, but they're up 2 scores, 38-24. If they go for it, which I'm guessing they would, maybe they punt it away. They go for it, they get the first down, game's over. If they don't, or if they punt, then Clemson can get the by the way touchdown. But nothing. Everything's all locked up on that. So, hey, listen, kind of like outside of SMU, but in the end, it did the same thing. A little bit later than what Clemson did, but at least Clemson made a name for itself. Not every game, Joe, is going to go down to the wire. Last second field goal is going to win it. I know people are going to complain, SMU lost big and Indiana lost big and so did Clemson. But this was actually a somewhat competitive game. I mean, listen, Texas is the better team. That's why they were a double-digit favorite in this game.
Yeah, they were a double-digit favorite. What the line was originally, was it 12.5 or 13.5 in this one, Scott?
I got 11.5. And then it went up to 12.5 and then 13.5 and settled in. So no matter where you got it, if you're a favorite, you won.
Yeah.
And no matter where you got it as an underdog, you lost. So
you got to feel for Clemson here, though. They really gave it a nice shot. That opening drive for Clemson, able to put the touchdown on the board. And then they were able to come out. That third quarter was so nice as well. I know you cashed on that, but yeah, to not be able to keep it tight here with Texas. They should be proud of themselves, though, for getting here, don't you think?
Yeah. I mean, listen, you're a representative. You won the ACC championship. That's probably as much as this, especially after they got demolished in week number 1, if you remember that game against Georgia. I mean, it's probably as good as you could have expected out of Clemson this year, especially after, that first game. So, yeah, hey, listen, not everyone can win a championship. It's as simple as that. And at least they didn't lose 50-0 or something goofy like that. So 38-24. Again, there must be a timeout because I got the game on. They're showing highlights here. So something must be going on. Second half, we get to the games tomorrow. That's right.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back in Game Live, Pro Football Game Day here on the Grid. One game in, one about to be in, and then we got another one we're going to preview here, Ohio State and Tennessee in just a second. It's taking an hour and a half to finish the final minute 30 here in this Texas-Clemson game. There was a play that was short of the line of scrimmage, or short of the first down, 4th and 1. Of course, they went to review. That took an hour. They finally came out of the review. Then Clemson, I think, called a timeout after all that for some goofy reason. So hopefully they just get the first. Texas fumbles the ball. All right. That lane 13.5 that we said was going to be a winner? Maybe not, Joe. Clemson's going to get the ball. Can you imagine? Clemson's got a minute and a half left, right? They're down 2 scores. You get a quick touchdown here. You do an onside kick, and you recover that. Holy crap. When you talk about a bad loss. But then they fumble the ball. They should have just done a quarterback sneak. They didn't. And now Clemson's going to get the ball back right around midfield. They got a chance to win this thing. Or not, they got a chance to cover if you're holding on to the double-digit ticket.
Yeah, I'm seeing everything locked right now. Before they locked it up, we were seeing plus 13.5 still for Clemson out there on the board. And it'll be interesting to see if they open this one back up. But poor job by Texas finishing out this game. All they had to do was hold on to that ball, get that first down, and run out the clock. And now they've given Clemson the opportunity. Texas has to be shaking their heads. Even with the win in this game, they didn't play solid out there, Scott. And this was my concern with this Texas team. They've just had those struggles on the season. It's come offensively as of late. But yeah, Clemson's put up one heck of a fight in this game.
Yeah, they got the ball down at the Texas 30-yard line. A minute 32 left. It's too bad they're down 2 touchdowns and not a touchdown and a field goal. Because if they had a touchdown and a field goal, I might kick the field goal right around now just to give myself that much more time for the touchdown. But they are moving. That is that is not a winning ticket right now, boy. I tell you what, if you're Texas and you're laying 13.5, I knew more people, excuse me, that were grabbing Clemson than laying the 13.5 with Texas. But if you were, that's you just get the first down. That's it. You said it. It's funny. Clemson last game had SMU doing the same thing, kind of role reversal here. So I got a feeling. I think Clemson scores. You know what? I hate to say it. I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight. I had the under. So either way, I lose. But we'll see. I want to see dramatic. Just get the onside kick. Just see what happens with that.
Do you know where the money was sitting coming into this? Like, was Texas a home favorite that everyone, the public, was on laying all of those points? Because if it was, it makes sense we get that backdoor cover with Clemson. I just didn't look where the money was at coming into this, Scott.
Yeah, neither did I. I knew a lot of the money was on some of the other teams, but I didn't look for this one. I don't look at that too much. If I see someone make a note, I'll make a point of noticing it, but otherwise I don't really seek that out too much. Just from people I know, you're just talking podcasts and everything else here. More people were kind of leaning towards Clemson going back to Texas. He's from that area and everything else, that they figured that would be a little bit of a hunch. And then who wants to lay double digits in a bowl game like this? Or in any game for that matter. So more leaning towards it. I think.
Okay, Clemson's they're 4th and 6 right now.
Ooh, just stepped out of bounds. Just at that about. Oh, they would have had it at the 2-yard line. I'll tell you, some of these guys have been great. Yeah. So what's that? 3rd down now? Sweat pour. This is what gambling's all about. Who cares about who wins or loses? We know that already. Who's going to cover the spread? And teasers too. If you took Texas in a tease, you lowered it from, maybe a worst number 13.5 down to 7.5. So even that's in play. The only one that wouldn't really be in play is if it was a 10.3 team tease. So
it's like Texas got the ball. I don't know what happened. Texas got it. Their defense came up big, 1st and 10, Scott, for Texas.
Yep.
They got a minute 16 not to screw it up, though. Can we trust Texas?
Did you say that was a fumble? That was a fumble, but off a completion. I think that's going to be under review. I think maybe not.
I'm watching the replay right now. Interesting.
Out of all the things they reviewed, that's what they got. It was a little dumb pass to the running back who got hit and lost the ball. I didn't think. Well, I got to see this again here real quickly. I didn't think he had possession at all. I'm shocked they didn't review that. If I'm Clemson, I would have called a timeout. I'm watching now.
Absolutely. It looks like you get one step.
That's not a catch.
No.
No way.
Someone wanted Texas in the cover. The game is, it looks like over. I'm seeing everyone walk on the field. Someone had Texas
Clemson had no
today.
timeouts left, so they couldn't stop it. I don't know, Joe. Like I said, they spent an hour and a half trying to determine if the kid got the first down on the third down play. Literally, that's the game right here. You know, if that's ruled an incompletion, you got 4th and 6. You're at the 20-yard line. You got a shot still. And then, you know, it was one of those, like I said, little dump off to the running back. He catches it. You know, probably takes a step and then turns and is hit right away, and the ball pops out. Wow.
Wow.
All right. Game over. 38-24. If you got Texas, you got lucky. If you got Clemson, you get screwed. It's simple as that. So, all right, let me give you some of the numbers of these games, and then next segment we'll take a look at the Ohio State, Tennessee game. 34-17, Baltimore beats Pittsburgh, right? Lamar Jackson, 207 yards passing, 15 of 23, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Ran for 22 yards. He took a couple of kneel downs. Derrick Henry, 24 for 162. Somehow or another did not get a touchdown, though. So no luck there. Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely and Rashad Bateman all caught their touchdown passes. Russell goes 22 of 33 for 217. Warren rushed for 48. Najee Harris, 42. And then Russ scrambled for 27. But he had that big scramble that turned into a turnover inside the Baltimore 5-yard line. So Warren had 5 receptions for 44. And that's basically it. So Baltimore wins 34-17. They get the defensive touchdown as well. Both guys threw interceptions. So if you played that as we suggested, you cashed out. So good job. All right. As far as the college football stuff, let me see if they're finally into they got the box score for that. I think I just switched it. I think they do. I don't think we got an Arch Manning sighting today. Quinn Ewers goes 17-24 for 202 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Not great for a team that had 38 points. Jaden Blue, 15 carries, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wisner had 2 touchdowns as well. They ran for 292 yards, did Texas. Klubnik for Clemson, 26 of 43, 336 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Great job passing. They only ran for 76 yards, but just a case of too much Texas. Impressed with Clemson's offense. I was. They moved the ball a lot more than I thought they would. And disappointed Texas defense. But in the end, Texas wins and moves on to the second round, Joe.
Texas is really going to have to clean up what they do defensively, though, in the next round, Scott, because we look at this team. This team's so solid defensively in that regular season. And for them to allow Clemson to come out so strong offensively, I was shocked by that. And obviously the books were not wanting to move off that total of 17.5 as well. What are your hopes for Texas going forward?
Listen, my hopes are they win it all because I have a ticket on Texas from the beginning of the year. So that's what I'm hoping. But will it happen? Don't know. Texas, they already got a lineup. How about that, Joe? Pretty good by FanDuel. Texas, 13.5-point favorites against Arizona State.
That's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points. But we'll talk about that. We'll preview tonight's game. We'll come back to the game live for the football game.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. It is in-game live, Pro Football Game Day here on the grid. The action is over for now. A little pregnant pause here, but top of the hour, we got another college football playoff game, Ohio State and Tennessee. For those keeping track, favorites 3-0 straight up and against the spread. So Notre Dame an easy winner. Same thing with Penn State earlier today, and then we just saw Texas win by 14. So maybe you got 13.5 and you bought the hook up to 14. That might be, but it'll go down as three favorites winning, covering all three. Two games go under, and this one goes over. So are we due for an underdog? You know, the proverbial winners bet with streaks, losers bet against streaks. Do you go into this thing thinking that there's no way all four favorites are going to cover and one dog has got to cover, right? I must say this was the one, I asked this question to many people, that if there was one team, Joe, that was going to win that's an underdog, most people, myself included, thought it was going to be Tennessee. So let me rattle off the numbers. Ohio State's laying 7.5 against Tennessee. Home game for the Buckeyes, obviously. Over-under is 46.5. Not monster trends like we had with some of these other games, but I will tell you this season, Tennessee 10-2 straight up as Ohio State was, 7-5 against the spread. Buckeyes 6-6 against the spread, pretty even there. 7-5 under for Ohio State, 7-5 over for Tennessee, pretty much the same there. Last time Ohio State closed as a favorite of 7 points or more in a playoff type of game, the 2007 BCS championship game against Florida, which they got whacked 41-14. I will say this. This is, if you like trends, 6 games for Ohio State with an over-under of 50 or less this season. All 6 went under. Interesting. 6 games over 50, all 6 went over. How cracky is that? Tennessee is an underdog, 5-13 against the spread their last 18 games. So this is not a traditionally good spot. Tennessee 6-1 under their last 7 games. So add it all up for me, I do like the under. And I'm kind of leaning towards Tennessee, although I don't think Ohio State's going to lose. It's a rare time where I'm going to tell you from the outset, I think Tennessee covers, but I think Ohio State wins the game. What about you?
Okay, I'm a Buckeyes fan, and I go into this trying to not put any bias into my fanship because I like my money better than I like my teams out here, but I look at Ohio State, and I think if they would have been able to beat Michigan, that this one would be in jeopardy of them covering. I still think they would have got the win, but with them coming up that loss versus Michigan, I just can't see Ryan Day and Chip Kelly not coming out so aggressive in this game, running up that score, getting the win here. Now, Tennessee has a great defense. We know Ohio State has a great defense as well. I'm counting on Ohio State's defense to make those massive plays, to get those pick sixes. Nico Imalava here, if I'm pronouncing his name totally butchering that wrong.
That's better than me. That's better than what I would have done. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for him to use his legs, but I do think he'll have to pass in this game, and I think the opportunity of that pick six comes into play here. I know Will Howard has those struggles, and I'm not biased against him in that way because I think he could throw that interception as well. So this is really going to come down to the defense and which defense we trust more out there, Scott. And when I look at Ohio State, I just have to have more faith in their defense. This defense is holding opponents to 260.3 yards per game, best in the country. They limit opponents to only 96.3 rushing yards, 144 passing yards. And I do think in this one, we're going to see them really lock down. Now, we talked about their offensive line. It needs to really step up. They've been riddled with injuries this season, but I'm counting on Ryan Day and Chip Kelly to come out, have a game plan, get that ball moving through the air. So I got to lay the 7.5, and I won't be shocked if they win it by double digits, Scott.
All right. Now, you're a Buckeyes fan. I'll throw you the question that we discussed with who was it? One of our it was a Steve. I forget which one it was. It was Steve or Colby. Yeah. If Ohio State loses, I mean, is there serious buzz about firing Ryan Day? I mean, you look at his record. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really do think, and yes, his record is fantastic, but his first thing is, and I still don't even know if his job's secure here with the win, unless they win it all. Because if you can't beat Michigan, that's your first step, beating Michigan, beating your biggest rival out there. And some will say, yeah, Michigan is built to beat them. Well, then Ohio State needs to find a way to beat Michigan. They need to build to beat Michigan. So I think his job is in jeopardy if they can't win it all, Scott. It's just each and every year they can't get past Michigan. It's just not a recipe for success for this team unless they can take it all.
Would you be in favor of that? Just because, as they brought up, not that Alabama's fallen completely off the ledge here, but they're not the same, clearly, when Nicky Quick was there. 3 losses in a season. Well, he didn't have that in 3 years, right? So, and they're not in the playoffs. Bottom line is, and they lost a game against Oklahoma. They lost to Vandy, for goodness sake. So it's like, be careful what you ask for. It's easy to fall down. I mean, Ohio State's one of the top 2, 3, literally 4 programs in the country, and he's been able to keep it at that level. So it's kind of like you want to risk bringing in another guy who might not keep it at that level.
No, absolutely not. I'm not in favor of it, but you know how easily ownership lets go of these coaches. They just say, okay, you can't get past this test and you're gone. So I think while his job's in jeopardy, I think it would be an absolutely ridiculous move by Ohio State to let Ryan Day go. But I won't be shocked if that happens. Wow. What about you?
I don't think they would, but I'm not as close to the program. I'm not a fan. I mean, but I just, boy, that would be just a bad look. You know, there are certain schools that you would say, boy, how are you going to hire a guy who's going to go to that school when you're telling the world if you don't beat, Michigan in this case, you're going to get fired after 3-4 years, right? But in the case of Ohio State, all right, that going in. You just know you got to beat Ohio State or you got to beat Michigan. If you hire a Michigan head coach, you got to beat Ohio State. It's as simple as that. Otherwise you don't.
Scott, Michigan didn't have Harbaugh in there. So to not be able to beat Michigan without Harbaugh, that's a huge question mark. It's a huge red flag out there for Ohio State. They should have been able to get it done. But then it comes down to, is Will Howard their quarterback, right? Yeah. Will Howard hasn't lived up to the levels that Ryan Day should have had as a quarterback.
Is Urban Meyer still interested? How funny would that be? Back after.
There's a better chance the Raiders might stumble into a win because of who they're playing over the next few weeks than the Giants, who I don't think will win.
I don't believe for 1 minute that they want to win a game. I do not believe that the New York Football Giants want to win a game at all because it will cost them dearly. In fact, they will continue to suck for years to come if they screw this up.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
Blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
All right, welcome back. In-game live, pro football game day here on the grid. Wrapping up shop. Quick 3.5 hours, as it always is with Joe here on a Saturday afternoon. So bad news for me, good for you, Joe. My SGP kind of blew up. I had Pittsburgh +7. That's no good. I had the under 47.5. That was no good. Had Derrick Henry touchdown, so no need to go on. Mine was a loser. But better news for you, right?
Yeah, it actually played out nicely for my same game parlay. Those three legs coming in and cashing, and Zay Flowers actually had a 49-yard reception out there. So great to see, because we had him for his longest reception over 22.5. So that cash. Mark Andrews put up over the 3.5 receptions. And then Jalen Warren was able to go 25 plus receiving yards. So if you tailed on those three legs, that came in at +719. So hopefully some other people cashed with me, Scott.
Yeah, I thought we had a halfway decent day. You know, gave out a bunch of in-game numbers. Clemson third quarter, the interceptions for both Russell and Lamar hit. So number of different plays. Opportunity with Baltimore or with Pittsburgh when they were heavy favorites. They ended up tying it. You could have hedged with that one. So I thought not a bad day overall. Hopefully you guys were able to cash a couple of tickets. Joe and I will be back tomorrow at 4:24, technically Eastern time, to do the late games. Bunch of early games, Joe, just to throw some out there. You know, anything, a lot of ugly games. Although I will say most games have at least one team that's challenging still for a playoff spot. If not realistically, then at least mathematically. You got some real duds on there. I'm real curious to see how Philadelphia does at Washington. That line is 3.5. But the Eagles have been playing so well lately. Washington's kind of fallen off the radar a little bit for me after all that great publicity early on with Jaden Daniels. But I'm curious to watch that one at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic matchup, because we know we already saw this matchup this season, and the Philadelphia Eagles were able to run away with it late in that game with Saquon Barkley just being unstoppable. So Washington, if they don't make the mistakes in this one, they could be able to keep it tight, Scott. I'm willing to grab the Washington Commanders plus the 3.5, but I do think it could be a live betting situation on the Eagles if they go down in this game, because we know the Eagles in some of these games have had slow starts. So while I think Washington cover plus the 3.5, I still see a path for the Eagles winning it by, 1 or 2 points in this game. So it's going to be a really interesting one. Excited to see this. I'm really interested to see how the Carolina Panthers come out versus Arizona Cardinals as well. I don't know how much I can trust Kyler Murray, and we've got the Panthers here. I almost want to hold my nose, grab them plus the 4.5.
Yeah, I need one more loss, final 3 games out of Carolina. So I'm hoping Arizona can. And they generally play better as underdogs. Now, they're favorites here, but they also generally play better on the road as they are here. So I'm kind of hoping that Arizona is able to pull off one more win. I'm curious to see Michael Penix Jr. and see how well he does against the bad Giants team, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting matchup, right? This Giants team absolutely struggling. Do they really want the win? Are they really playing for anything out there other than their jobs next year? Because that's on the mind of these players out there in these teams that are just terrible. But the Falcons, will it give them the uptick that they need? So I don't know, Scott. 8.5 is that spread? Maybe Michael Penix Jr. props. I think that's what we should be circling. He's going to come out looking to get something done.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, the other one is the Detroit Lions. That they got just ripped apart at home against Buffalo, but there's so many injuries in that defense in Detroit. If they're able to bounce back, then they win big. If they don't win, when I'm in big double digits, that's a telling sign for me that Detroit's in a little bit of trouble with their injury issues.
Absolutely. So many injury issues. And then you've got Jared Goff outside in the cold versus the Chicago Bears. And then this defense has struggled, but I look at this one. Detroit has to win. They have to cover. Their run game has to come out nice and strong. You got to take Jared Goff out of the equation. Just look for him to pass off that ball in this cold weather and be done with this game. I would look, though, at Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has been such a target for Caleb Williams that I think we'll see that connection with the injuries to the defense here at the Lions. But it's scary to lay 6.5 with the Lions, but it just can't go any other way, Scott.
Yeah. And finally, Joe, we were concentrating obviously on football. That's what this show is. But sad news came along while we were on the air. Ricky Henderson passed away. Really, truly one of the all-time greats. Only 65, too. I used to cover baseball for a local radio station with the Yanks when he was on the team. He was as funny can be. He really was. He was a character. He'll be sorely missed. That is sad. It really is. Joe, great job as always. We'll be here tomorrow afternoon, 4:30, 4:24 Eastern Time here on the Grid.
The New York team has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
What's up, everybody? Welcome on in. This is In-Game Live College Football Game Day here on SportsGrid, coming at you just a little later than we normally do, at least this tandem here with Brady Cannon. I am Adam Kaufman. We've still got you for a full 4 hours, so don't worry about that. In fact, a little longer than normal. Sometimes it's about 3.5 or so, whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. We got you until midnight Eastern time, or wherever you may be listening. Just know that from right now, it's the next 4 hours, and we are going to be live betting, live sweating, live discussing all things, obviously, Ohio State and Tennessee college football playoff, the last of the opening round games, as we have already seen multiple teams today, Brady, and the really competitive games overall so far. Texas cruised past Clemson 38-24, Penn State 38-10 dismantling of SMU. Of course, last night, Indiana, I guess, put up a fight kind of late, better late than never, but really that was a game that was never in question whatsoever in falling to Notre Dame 27-17. And so you get a live look right there on your screens of what the college football playoff is looking like right now as we narrow the field. What do you think? What have you made of the day so far today?
Well, it hasn't been that competitive so far yet, Adam. You have all the favorites here winning by margin. Now, Texas, that line, we saw it steam up all the way to 13.5. Clemson opened as about an 11-point underdog. We saw a lot of Texas money come in all the way to 13.5. They cover that number. They win by 14. Clemson, I thought was a side that would put up a fight, more experience in this type of arena. Didn't really show up. SMU got behind the 8 ball right from the get-go, and they got their doors blown off. And, it happened in the NFL, too. If you laid the favorite in the NFL, we had the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens come through. So going back to Friday, you mentioned Notre Dame and Indiana, a good day for the favorite, covering these games in all 5 cases, both college and pro.
Shout out as well, Brady, to Montana State and North Dakota State cruising through the FCS semifinals. So they will match up once again. That will be a good time, obviously. I've been back in Montana State like crazy, making some money in recent weeks. 15-0, 9-0 at home, that team, and steamrolled South Dakota today. Just 2 touchdowns, the final, 31-17. But really, that was another game that was just never quite in jeopardy. Let's bring in our first guest of the program, Jeff Dawson. You know him, of course, from East Coast Sports Investors, EC Sports Invest on Twitter. And again, huge game that is on the horizon starting in a matter of moments. Jeff, how you doing? How's your betting day going?
Well, I know we're here to talk college football, and that's why we're here. We've had a fabulous day, believe it or not, on the hardwood college hoops. Team totals 5-1 today, 1-0 on a first period over on the Islanders and Leafs. I did have Penn State every which way but loose, but I did have that Clemson team total under the 19. That was the best game by far, and hats off to Dabo, down 21. And they fought hard, but as Brady and you both have said, it's been chalk sandwiches so far. It's like betting against one of those losing streaks, well, the favorite can't come in 8 times in a row. And so you're kind of caught right now in that spot where if you're going to give me the hook, Tennessee looks great. There's 30,000 people from Tennessee going to be cheering. We know the bad taste of State's mouth and their fans right now after losing to Michigan. So Tennessee gets out early. This could be the upset everyone's waiting for.
Jeff, I wonder if you see the trend for the favorite continuing. This was probably the one game where I felt most confident in the favorite. It seems the masses are in love with the underdog here. And to your point about the last time we saw Ohio State, it was a very ugly affair in a loss to Michigan. I think they're able to rebound here. I think they are the better team. I'm not sure if this spread is enough. I'd be, once again, thinking that the favorite is going to come through for yet another time today.
I agree with this is the public trendy dog of the weekend right here. The team total from Tennessee went from 17.5 to 19.5. I'm looking at Ohio State at 27.5, juiced over. If you like Ohio State in this game, I'm going to tell you this, you better have them in the first half. They got to get out early. They got to take control. They got to keep the fan base behind them. So if you got a full ticket on Ohio State minus the 7.5, wherever you're shopping, make sure you sneak in there and have a little on that first half as well.
So funny you guys say that because, I didn't dive into what the splits look like and the whole pros versus Joes thing. But what I will tell you is just paying attention to people within the space who, are actively betting college football, but do it all throughout the year and know what they're talking about, not just the people that maybe swoop in come college football playoff time or bowl time and want to get involved at that point. I saw loads of people on Indiana. I saw loads of people on Clemson. As far as this game tonight, I would have come in saying the opposite of what you guys are. I feel like it's been Ohio State, Ohio State, Ohio State. Even people, as Brady alluded to, sort of alting the number up, saying that 7.5 that's not enough. That's why people have moved it from 6.5 to 7 to now where it sits at this point in time. So obviously we're just kind of watching different people, that sort of thing, which is sort of the beauty of the business as well. But it was only further enhancing, Jeff, my confidence in my Ohio State play, which I've been on for several days at this point in time. I only hope it doesn't disappoint. But, you kind of touched on what it would take for Tennessee to come up with an upset or to the very least keep this game close. What does it take for the favorite here to get the job done?
Howard has to come out early. They have to win the turnover battle. They have to, again, keep that crowd in it. On pound for pound, both sides of the ball, they're the better team. And I think our differences was that hook, Adam. I think a lot of people are taking the hook with the 7.5 pay. We can lose by 7 or less here. If Nico and the offense gets going, again, if they can play keep away here and they can run the ball and then they can move the chains here, Tennessee's going to be in this game from the jump. But I think Ohio State, I think they have another gear. I've been waiting for this other gear. And this number sticking at 7.5 tells me I think this is going to be the Ohio State team that was the preseason favorite to win it all. This is the Ohio State waiting to play in the Big Ten championship against Oregon and to get that revenge game here. So if they lose, Ryan Day might as well just take his bag, build up his resume, and keep walking because it's going to get ugly.
Jeff, you mentioned taking Ohio State in the first half. I would agree with you. They have to start hot here. And I would think part of their plan, after being embarrassed by Michigan, I would think that the Buckeyes try and clamp down on defense. Usually when you see a team rebound off a disappointing loss, they emphasize defense. Maybe playing under the first half total is something to consider as well.
I agree 100% here. Again, I think Tennessee's going to try to move the chains and play keep away here. If I'm the Ohio State defense, I'm going to have Nico try to beat me. I don't want Tennessee running, 4 or 5 yards of carry here and, playing keep away here. So I like your thoughts. I like the under here in the first half as well. And I do like Ohio State in the first half.
We're just getting underway. Ohio State and Tennessee again. It is a 7.5 point favorite for the favorite here, Ohio State. We'll see what the Buckeyes were able to do against the Volunteers. Season on the line. That's the point of the year that we are at here in the opening round of the college football playoff. Back with more with Dawson and Brady. I'm Adam. This is In Game Live.
So my team didn't win this weekend, but I still did with this app that's taking over the game. Sports Millions Pick'em lets you make quick and easy predictions. Pick your favorite players, go higher or lower, and you can still win big even if your team loses. Plus, the multiplier is insane. With just a few picks, you can win big money. So get on it. They've got a welcome bonus to help you start off your winning streak.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun. I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What? How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We are here in-game live college football game day. We will do plenty on the NFL as well, rest assured. In fact, there were two games today on this Saturday with the Chiefs, the narrow favorites against the Texans, getting the job done with Patrick Mahomes back out there. People questioned what he was going to look like with that ankle injury. Obviously looked just fine. Was it malpractice to put him out there? We can discuss that a little bit later on with Brady and our guests to follow a bit later as well. And, of course, Lamar Jackson kind of exercising the demons with a big win, convincing win against the Steelers. That was a fun one if you were on the Baltimore side. But, again, both favorites won. If you put them together on the money line or part of a money line parlay for other games heading into Sunday, whatever it may have been, favorites doing the job. Mike Tomlin against the dog. We always hear about it, or as a dog against the spread. Not getting it done today. But, again, some of that NFL chatter a little bit later on. Those games, as quote-unquote boring as they may have been, again, just as a viewer, again, that was kind of the situation with these college games today. You saw some fight late out of Clemson just to sort of hang. You know, obviously Jeff Dawson here with us alluded to that before, and we didn't get too much out of the other contests dating back to last night and the other contests today as well. So, again, taking a look at the updated college football playoff. But was there anything, before we get into, lines that are out, Jeff, for upcoming games in the next round, all of that, anything from these first three games of this tournament, of course, heading into this game that we've got going on right now, Ohio State and Tennessee scoreless, anything you took from those games other than just like, the chalk was the chalk and maybe they were a chalk for a reason, but now leading into tougher matchups coming up?
I could talk for hours on this. Just watching social media last night and today, every team, whether Indiana, Alabama was better than them, or South Carolina could have beat them, and then we saw SMU lay an egg as well. 12 noon, cold weather, got behind the 8 ball. So that SEC bias, that SEC nation, we're better than everyone else. We got a 12-team tournament. I don't know what else these guys want. It's not March Madness. So a 1's not going to beat a 16 like it does Island Hoops. So I think we got what we were kind of expected. We wanted some good games. We got some bounce back on Clemson. Hopefully this is the best game of the night and the weekend here. But I think kind of in perspective, we kind of got what we expected with the favorites.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Jeff. I mean, they were not short spreads. Penn State was at least an 8.5-point favorite, maybe as high as 9.5 in some spots. We talked about Texas being bet all the way to 13. Notre Dame was better than a touchdown, or maybe right at 7 at the close. So they were all pretty sizable favorites. Want to talk about, I know we're going to get into the next matchups coming up on New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve day. But real quick here, Ohio State is driving. The in-game number all the way to 13.5. They have 1st and 10 at the Tennessee 37-yard line. Your total has gone all the way to 52.5. This closed at 46.5. Now up to 52. Like I said, the spread to 13.5. Ohio State has 1st and 10 at the Tennessee 37. Still 13 minutes left in the first quarter. I played the under in this game.
Brady, real quick, because I think this is a fascinating thing to bring up. So just before we move to your question, the fact that all right, so now they just scored a touchdown. Because what I was going to say is, looking at FanDuel, as you were talking about it, you're talking about this elevated spread that jumped from 7.5 to 13.5, 6 full points. When at that point, Ohio State was only on the 37. I mean, that seemed like a massive in-game jump. Obviously, the books, had the Gray Sports Almanac, looked in the crystal ball and knew what was going to happen, because we got the touchdown that fast. And even after the score, the inevitable score, we're at 13.5 still. But just that in-game jump, I found incredibly surprising, unless somehow the books were just really behind on it.
Well, the total as well. I mean, they both jumped by a touchdown, basically. And that you don't always see that with just one score on the board, but it did come pretty quickly, Adam. So maybe there's an opportunity now. I mean, gosh, if you got to the window and took that hook with Tennessee, why wouldn't you take it now? You've doubled the number, basically. But Jeff, I was going to ask you, we were talking about the first half. You're off to a good start with Ohio State in the first half, maybe not so much with the under. I played the under for the entire game, and this is okay. And maybe I'll buy some more here with 52.5. But again, I kind of go to that theory that a team that was embarrassed, they emphasize defense on the bounce back spot here. And this is that next game. And I would think that they focus on and we know Tennessee has not been a great team offensively all season. What about the entire game total? Where do you stand in that regard?
I think you nailed it. We're talking about Ohio State and embarrassment. I don't think you're going to have to worry about the Ohio State side. They did something that they needed to do. What'd they do? They scored on the first possession, and they scored quick. We know they got a great defense. I would be playing a defense where Nico's got to beat me, not the running game. So it'll be interesting to see how they do line up here. Again, is it going to be the 4 or 5 yards a carry here, the 10,000 paper cuts, or are they going to allow Nico to try to beat him here? So I like where Ohio State is. I'm not going to run to the window at 13.5. I like our first half play, obviously. But if you're on the underside, you can probably take another bite of the apple on that underside and then just keep an eye on how Ohio State's offense is doing.
So again, the quarterfinals are all but completely set. We're not there yet. Need a winner from this game still. But Texas against Arizona State, Oregon against the winner of this game, Penn State, Boise State, Notre Dame, and Georgia. We will talk about some of those matchups because we do have lines that are available to us with Jeff Dawson. These are, of course, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day games that are right around the corner. So it makes the end of the calendar year and start of 2025 all that much more exciting as well. But as far as, the long shots, if you will, again, we've been mostly chalk, and it feels like, thinking back to last week's show and just this build up to this tournament, it has been who's the long shot, who's worth investing in. And kept kind of coming back in conversations here to one game in particular, and that was Notre Dame taking on Indiana. And of course, we had Notre Dame advance the 7th seed. Could Notre Dame take down Georgia with the quarterback concerns for the Bulldogs? We can explore some of that with Jeff on the other side.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. Oh, this just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this bet than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
Back with Brady, I am Adam. Jeff Dawson here from East Coast Sports Investors. Again, Ohio State up 7-0 in this game early on. First round of the college football playoff against Tennessee. We'll see what happens. We'll keep you posted. Look for in-game betting opportunities as well. But just before the break, I was talking about this Notre Dame Georgia game. It's a virtual pick'em. It's an incredibly tight spread. Georgia, of course, has won a couple of national championships just within the last few years. Coming into this one after the first round bye as a 1.5-point favorite. This is a New Year's Day evening game, 8:45 Eastern start is what it is slated at. But the big question after Notre Dame's rather convincing win of Indiana, a team that everyone screamed fraud about to the committee all season long, and Signetti's group went out and largely looked the part most of that game until got its act together with a couple of late scores. Georgia here comes into this one without its quarterback. No Carson Beck, potentially for the entire college football playoff. We don't know for sure, but that is what it is looking like, which means, Jeff, Gunnar Stockton is going to be the quarterback here for Georgia in trying to win this game and advance his team, obviously into the Final Four. Is this going to happen, or is Notre Dame, the team that so many were talking about as a potential long shot to invest in going into the tournament, a team to think very strongly about now?
Well, we were talking backstage during the break, and I respect Jeffrey Benson and the Circa out of anyone in the States here. And usually when he opens a number, he opens it up with conviction. And he opened up Notre Dame -1 or 1.5 and immediately went to Georgia, pick them, Georgia now -1, 1.5. So again, he wanted the Georgia money. He got the Georgia money. Now Georgia -1.5 here. first one to 23 wins this game. That's the way I look at it. And it could be 20-20 walk-off field goal here. We talked about Notre Dame's got one game under their belt. I don't know a lot about Gunner here. I did see him play a few series when Beck got hurt, of course. I would also, if you like Notre Dame here, I would take a look at the plus 550 to win it all here, because I think if they do beat Georgia, which is basically a pick 'em here, now you're going to set yourself up probably to a pick or maybe a -1 or a +1 if Penn State wins. If Boise State shocks the world, which they're double-digit underdogs, which I don't think they will, again, I think Notre Dame has a good shot against one of those two after beating Georgia, if they beat Georgia, to get to the final. So I would love to be holding on to a plus 550 ticket getting into the championship game here. So if you like Notre Dame here against Georgia, don't be to take a bite at that plus 550 for them to win it all as well.
Jeff, I wonder if the strength of schedule worries you at all as a Notre Dame backer, if you are indeed a Notre Dame backer, for anybody out there that wants to back the Fighting Irish. The biggest game certainly on their schedule this year was a tremendous win. I think it was week 1, whatever they call it, over Texas A&M on the road. A great contest, a great victory for the Fighting Irish. They get the win over Indiana, but we know maybe that's not as impressive. Other than that, not a whole lot of big wins on their schedule, despite the fact that they were all wins and the one loss to Northern Illinois. Georgia, you're going against Alabama, Texas, Florida. And yet this spread's only 1.5. Is maybe Georgia being undervalued a little bit?
I have to wonder if it's what would the spread be if Carson Beck was playing. I don't know if it would be 2.5. Maybe, because the Georgia backers, C Nation is coming here. So that number was set at that reason. I think it's short because of Gunner in the quarterback situation there. Notre Dame, week 0, goes into Texas A&M, wins that game, loses 28-point favorites to Northern Illinois. Then every game after was a playoff game, Brady. So they were fighting for their lives every week, and they just, took advantage of an undefeated Army team, an undefeated Navy team. Even in the year, USC is not the USC that we're used to. But again, it was an up and down track meet. This team is built differently. I think if they can hang around the first quarter, first half against Georgia, cut it down to a 20-minute game, or 30-minute game, I should say, I'm leaning Notre Dame right here.
Listen, you're forgiven for not knowing a whole lot about Gunner Stockton. He only has 51 career passes and has never started a game. So I don't think a lot of people have seen a lot of Gunner Stockton, and that includes those who are, Athens residents. Jeff Dawson,
might include the odds makers.
Sports Investors. Yeah, it's true. He is. He's on Twitter at EC Sports Invest. Jeff, thanks so much, man. Happy betting tonight.
Thank you.
All right, we'll.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500.
Oh, that just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
This is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
you're not riding with Joshie Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this bet than I do for this year. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here with you on IGL College Football Game Day, and we may, Brady, our thanks again to Jeff Dawson, by the way. He, always a pleasure having Jeff on. Look, we may be staring down another blowout here, and as an Ohio State backer, I am not complaining, but it is already now 14-0. The Buckeyes are leading this one. We are halfway, not even quite halfway, through the opening quarter. 8 minutes still to go in this game against Tennessee. The live total has jumped up to 54.5, but more notably, the spread is sitting at 18.5, Brady. It was 7.5 coming in. It's 18.5 right now. I mean, you had mentioned before, talking to Jeff, if you liked, and this is the if, right? This is if you were on that side. So it was a totally fair question. I just wasn't on that side. But if you liked the hook going in, why not double down at 13.5? And I was thinking, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was thinking to myself, I think I'd wait. I think I'd wait a little bit. Now at 18.5, this is where I would get in. Absolutely. If, again, I believe in Tennessee. Is it really going to stay this ugly? Is Tennessee not going to put up any sort of a fight and is going to lose this thing by 3+ touchdowns? I'd like to think hell, even Indiana showed some self-respect. I'd like to believe the Volunteers are going to do the same. Clemson, same story. That game at halftime at Texas absolutely could have gotten wildly out of hand. And yeah, it was still a win, a convincing win for the Longhorns, but at least you saw the Tigers fight just a little bit. At 18.5, even with the juice, we're looking at -135 on FanDuel here. I have to think Tennessee comes back a little bit.
You would sure think so, but I tell you what, I don't know, Adam. One of the storylines heading into this game was the weather. And it's about 25 degrees there in Columbus, okay? And you have a warm weather team traveling there in Tennessee. And that was a concern for these SEC schools traveling to the cold weather stadiums of the Big Ten or whatever conference it was. In this case, of course, the Big Ten and Ohio State. And maybe that is really affecting Tennessee. We've talked to Colby Dant here on the program throughout the entire season. And I think he was one of the guys that really kind of brought my attention to the fact that Tennessee never really impressed him. Yes, they were winning a lot of games early in the season, but they weren't playing anybody. And I know they were blowing people out. But again, it was cupcake schedule city for Tennessee early on in the season. And then when they faced some real big boy teams, that's when they showed some struggles, especially offensively. And that's what kind of led me to the under here. I've always liked the Tennessee defense. We saw them really stifle Alabama earlier this season, but the offense has not really impressed me. And we talked about this earlier with Jeff. I expected a real emphasis on defense for Ohio State. Well, right now they're pitching a shutout, but I'm starting to worry a little bit. You mentioned in the open all night sweats. I'm having an early night sweat here on under 46.5. The in-game total already to 54.5. But, kind of back to your point, taking this 18.5 with Tennessee, I don't know, man. This could be 38-7 or something like that. And that'd be okay with me, 38-7. But I think we may have a real blowout on our hands here. And I don't think Ryan Day and Ohio State are going to take their foot off the gas because they were so embarrassed by their right. I mean, that was, under a microscope. The whole world saw them get beaten by Michigan as a favorite, and they may not let up here in this one in response to that loss.
Well, I mean, we'll talk more about this later, but it's not the same, but it's sort of similar to a lot of the questions that Lamar Jackson faced after that Ravens game today. Was, after a week of noise and you can't beat the Steelers and 1-4 in your career and 0-4 against the spread and all of these things, was this in the back of your mind? Did you feel like you had to respond? And there was a little bit of that pile on. I know there was a defensive touchdown in there too, but there was a little bit of that pile on, not let up, not relent on the part of the Ravens. And yeah, we might be seeing some of that. Again, it's a little Narrative Street, but I love Narrative Street. We might be seeing a little bit of that here with Day and Ohio State today. You may be onto something. What do you think the committee's reaction is to what we've seen from this first group of games? I mean, this is the first year of the field of 12. I mean, this has to be wildly disappointing if you're the committee, right? I mean, the way this has gone, completely chalked, not only with the favorites, but covering the spreads. The people who said, all throughout that game last night, what is Indiana even doing here? Should have just put a third SEC team in there. They would have at least contended and Alabama would have put up a fight in this game instead of just getting embarrassed and playing scared the way Cignetti's team looked like it was doing for 3/4 of that game. How do you feel the committee looks at this in terms of carryover into next year? Because as we know, it's all like there's no explanation. There's no laid out, we're evaluating X, Y, and Z. It's incredibly subjective. Does something like strength of schedule become more important a year from now than it was this year?
Well, I hope so. Yes. I mean, strength of schedule is absolutely a real thing. And I think the committee at certain times, kind of let on that it didn't mean as much to them, maybe didn't show any importance in their grading of all these teams. I'm not positive. I would hope it would take a bigger role going forward because just as a part of a handicap when you're trying to pick a winner of a game, I think it also plays into, trying to put together a playoff bracket. But I don't have a problem at all with Indiana and SMU and Boise State. I mean, these teams earned it, and I think it's great. But also at the same time, Adam, this is not a real surprise. I mean, no matter what sport we're talking about, the early rounds, you often have a lot of mismatch, because the real low seed is playing the real high seed. I mean, that's the way it's supposed to go. The higher seeds are supposed to move on. So, this is not necessarily unexpected. Is the system flawed? Yeah, probably a little bit, but hey, it's the first year and it's going fine. It's great that we have 12 teams. It's great that we have these games. And, we've talked to Colby about this as well. I think maybe 16 teams is ideal. But, we'll probably get there someday, I'm sure. And hopefully this committee, does kind of look itself in the mirror every year and try and improve and try and get better with the process. I'm not saying they did a bad job. I think everything's just fine. And again, this is not to be unexpected that, teams are winning that are supposed to win in round one. But I tell you what, one thing that we've been saying out here in Las Vegas for, I don't know, maybe over 20 years, there's got to be a couple, 3 odds makers, handicappers, professional bettors on that committee because those people, I believe, can lend invaluable insight to this selection process. They know more than a lot of these guys. Now, those guys may know more in other areas than some of these bettors or odds makers or what have you. But they know power ratings. They know point spreads. They can say Alabama would have been favored over Indiana, guys, and blah, blah, blah. And how the public is going to bet it. And, they know so much of the intricacies that I think go into making this process even more efficient. So that's what I'm really rooting for at the end of the day, is they bring a Jimmy Vaccaro and a Kenny White and a Nick Bogdanovich, whoever it is, and sit them at the table and let them, give their input as well.
Sounds like it would be a great SNL skit, to be honest with you. But no, I think you're absolutely right. I think that is the direction it needs to go. Whether it will or not, I don't know. It feels like there's committee's got a little bit of that sort of hoity-toity, this is our club. It's like how, certain people can just get you can't, there's a members only club. You know what I mean? You're in the golf world, your kind, it can't be seen here. It feels like there's a little bit of that maybe with the gambling community as it relates to something like the college football playoff. But I just want to say, Brady, what you said is accurate, meaning of course, the favorites should be winning, and these are the teams that you expect to win. That being said, I have to believe that the College Football Committee is disappointed because you want a little of that March Madness feel. It doesn't mean like you're not going to see a one go down in the opening round because
can you
one's not
control
even
that
playing.
though?
You got the first round.
You got to
buys.
cross your fingers for that type of thing, right?
Of course, but I mean, look, the Bills should beat the Patriots by 75 points tomorrow. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, obviously. So I'm sure the committee would have liked to have seen in Indiana, like, oh man, can you believe it? Like, who would have seen that? Or SMU or tonight Tennessee, even as basically a touchdown, like something to just, this is why we're doing it. And
it's not good for the ratings if it's not exciting, right?
Horrible for the ratings, but tougher matchups next time out.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. Just look at us. That just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not riding with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in the set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
This is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashing.
Only on SportsGrid.
Back here in In-Game Live College Football Game Day with Brady. I am Adam. Lots of NFL talk on the way. We'll take a look at Circa Survivor numbers, Circa Millions, find out who Brady has on his contest card this week. A lot of good stuff. And, of course, keep you posted on all things Ohio State and Tennessee. This game right now, again, it's about as ugly as some of the others. Ohio State is up 14-0 and driving again already at the Tennessee 26, very nearly in the red zone once more. This could be a 3-touchdown lead in a matter of moments. Oh, by the way, about 5 minutes to go in the opening quarter. So the offense fast and furious for Ryan Day and this OSU team here early on in this game, looking to advance with authority on to the next round. But Brady, again, we can show people the bracket, the updated look at where things stand, but obviously we do have lines for some of these upcoming games. Penn State, 10.5-point favorites against Boise State. Georgia, 1.5-point favorite, as we were talking about earlier, against Notre Dame. Those games, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and should be obviously pretty interesting. We already sort of jumped into Notre Dame and Georgia a little bit, the QB concerns and all of that. Do you have any initial feelings on this Penn State game right here?
Penn State 10.5, Boise State 52.5. Obviously they handled SMU pretty easily. I think Boise State will be a tougher customer to deal with, and I just have to go back to a couple things. What we've seen all year long out of Ashton Jeanty, this guy is a beast. I don't know if there are many defenses in the country that can contain this kid. And then I go back to the game with the Oregon Ducks at Autzen Stadium in Eugene, and Boise State, I think they only lost by 3. It was a really tight game, and Boise had a number of chances to win that game outright. So if you can compete with Oregon, who is basically for, how long has it been now? Pretty much been the number one team in the country. I don't know if they are. We'll soon find out if they truly are the best team in the country, but they've been in that catbird seat for a while, and Boise gave them everything they could handle. So I would think Boise will give Penn State a tougher test. And maybe this point spread is built a little bit off of what we saw the Nittany Lions do today. That is 5-1 against the spread for Penn State in their last 6 games as a favorite. Are they going to cover 10.5 against Boise State? And like we've talked about here in the first half hour of the program or so, Adam, when are these dogs going to show up? Is Boise State the dog that can show up? You got to believe the public is going to, kind of buy into the Ashton Jeanty thing. And I don't know, man. It seems like a fairly big number to me. I am not good at setting my own number for college football. I think I'm pretty good at it in the NFL. But what I was thinking about this earlier, and what would I make the number with Penn State and Boise State? I said somewhere between 8 and 10. I didn't think, we're already onto the other side of 10 at 10.5. And maybe it'll go to 11 or something. I thought it would be under 10. I thought 8.5, 9.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. We'll see if it comes back the other direction. But I don't know, man. This kid, a lot of people said he should have won the Heisman Trophy. I think Boise will give him a test.
Look at that graphic. You had Travion Henderson scored, and so touchdown, Ohio State, make it 21-0. Buckeyes are leading this one, Brady. Yeah, I would be concerned about the under at this point. 3.5 to go in the opening quarter.
I'm not even done with the first quarter yet. I've got 21 points. Yeah, I may tear up that ticket here before too long.
Up to 58.5, the live total right now, but the spread, my God, 25.5, Brady. I guess for what I said about Tennessee before, 18.5, here's where I would jump in. Well, if I felt that way before, 25.5, 3.5 touchdowns. Hell yeah. I mean, if we were doing this show, like if Cam Stewart was with us last week, if Cam was with us right now, he'd click, 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 click. He'd be on Tennessee right now.
Yes, he would. You're talking about how the committee feels about these games. How do they feel about this one? This one is not just the favorite running away with it. It's the favorite running away with it early and often. This game could be over very quickly. And you talk about ratings and, not a whole lot of excitement and stuff like that, which, again, you understand the favorites are supposed to win these first-round games, but you want a little pizzazz out of it. Not much pizzazz going right now out of Tennessee.
Going into the weekend, was there, of the 4, so I'll include the Friday night game, was there one game in particular where you had the dog circled? Like you said, this is the team that to me is most live for the upset win, not just covering the spread, to go out and win.
I thought it'd be Clemson. And I think it came down to experience for me. And we've seen Texas kind of stub their toe a little bit on some big stages. We saw it last year in the playoff against Washington. Texas was favored in that game by a touchdown, if I recall. I'm not sure if it was a full 7, but at least 6.5. And I was on Washington in that game. And they really beat them up pretty good. And I thought Clemson, with all their experience, they weren't even necessarily supposed to be here. Dabo Swinney, one of the most decorated programs in the country as far as playoff experience, victories, national championships. You have it. I thought they could definitely stay within 11.5. And then we saw it go to 13, and they nearly did. But Texas was really in control. Clemson didn't look that good. So I thought that one was interesting. That probably surprised me the most. I didn't necessarily expect Indiana. I wasn't expecting Tennessee. But Clemson surprised me a little bit that they couldn't even really keep it close. They looked like they could for a minute, and then there was just apparently or evidently, I think you could see with your own eyes, there was a talent disparity.
I can't imagine you were, just because I know you as I do. But were you paying much attention? Do you have any investment in the FCS games that were happening earlier today? Because again, those were semifinal contests. So if ever there were a time to jump in, right now.
Yeah, no, unfortunately I did not. And I had forgotten that they were even playing today. I wish I had watched because I love that brand of football. It seems like it's the same usual suspects that are in the dance every year. You know, the North Dakota States and the South Dakota States. Montana State's been a beast the last couple of years. I'm sorry, I missed it though. I wish I would have seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, North Dakota State was actually a dog, 3.5-point dog, and won outright, and was never really in jeopardy that game. And Montana State just laid the wood. So looking to see if ultimately that happens again come the championship round. Maybe another title on the way. But stay with us here. Much more on the way. In-game live college football game day. Start fixing some NFL while keeping you posted on a dud of a contest. Ohio State.
The holidays come with a touch of craziness, from unwrapping the latest storylines to the best betting insights. We've got everything you need to crank up the excitement this season. We can't promise there won't be a little yelling.
Play a decent schedule. They have maybe 500. Oh, that just ruined my day.
But we can guarantee a whole lot of fun. Merry Christmas from all of us at SportsGrid.
I mean, this is week 16, and you're throwing this guy in the fire. I know the Giants suck, Scotty, but you got that backdrop. Just give it to Bijan 50 times if Penix isn't looking too well.
And I also think Penn State has an easy track. And I think, to be honest with you, Indiana, people are all going to say they should have never been there. And listen, I just wanted to say one last time before that happens that you can all kiss my ass.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
You're not Rodney Josie Allen.
Yeah.
Where have you gone? Don't tell me it's a Philadelphia Eagles, Donnie. Who's the team for you?
You see that Vince Lombardi trophy that sits back here? That's a replica. And that's something that the Philadelphia Eagles have won as recent as 2017. The Buffalo Bills are notorious for making it to the Super Bowl and coming up lame, which they might be able to do. But my question is, can the Buffalo Bills even get to the Super Bowl?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I'm ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all people.
You don't want them to go 13-0 and then lose the first round of the playoffs.
Red.
Yeah, this is their last shot. They don't really have anywhere else to go yet.
Hot take.
By the time I hit, I guess what, Route 33 up here, that ticket's cashed.
Only on SportsGrid.
There's a host of NFL games tomorrow as we continue Week 16. We will pick through those as we always do, game by game. Multiple guests on the way. Should be lots of fun. We got you for another few hours, but there were 2 games today. 4 teams that are going to play on Christmas Day on Netflix, as a matter of fact, in case you hadn't heard throughout all of the promotion of that big day when NFL is just, honestly, I love the NFL. I love the NFL, Brady, but it's sort of kind of cramping my style when it comes to Christmas. So infringing upon what has been for a long time the NBA's day. I was very much looking for just the 5 NBA games, and NFL does its you're already year round. You already make everything interesting. The draft is a whole summer, long conversation coming out of, what ends up happening in the spring and dissecting all of it. And obviously after the season, the whole winter is leading into the draft. Like the NFL, you've got your stage, man. You got your Saturday here today opposite the opening round of the college football playoff. You don't need Christmas. And although that Netflix has 40 on-air people working these games, they would rather be with their families. This doesn't need to happen. But nevertheless, These 4 teams that played today are going to play again. Just swap the matchups. It's not going to be Chiefs-Ravens. That would be too easy. We will have the Ravens matching up, obviously, with the Texans, who are a little bit injury-riddled now. Tank Dell went down today, ugly knee injury. Don't know that severity, but obviously carted off to the hospital. Not great. The Steelers will face the Chiefs, and these are 4 teams that we're going to see in the playoffs. So from that standpoint, scheduling-wise, good thing. Compelling games, interesting teams, obviously. These games today weren't necessarily. The Texans did put up a fight, absolutely. I never really felt like the Chiefs weren't going to win, but the Texans, I had them at plus 3.5. That also never really felt like it was going to get there. Even when it was tied, it didn't feel like it was going to get there. Chiefs won that game 27-19. The Ravens and Steelers were tied for a hot minute at 17, and then it was all Baltimore the rest of the way, 34-17, the winners. We can get into some of the nitty-gritty of these games, but bigger picture thoughts on these contests, Brady, as we have Kansas City all but locking up the top seed in the AFC in that opening round bye. Not officially, but again, it's going to happen. And the Steelers and Ravens, it's going to be a dogfight for the AFC North, obviously. They are both sitting at 10-5.
Well, I think it's very interesting how these games today probably affect the point spreads for next week. The Texans didn't look that great, and the week before they looked pretty darn good out of their bye week, taking on the Miami Dolphins and really handled them with no problem. And it looked like they were going to be able to put up a fight against Kansas City, but just, C.J. Stroud turns the ball over early, and they just kind of got behind the 8 ball early. And you had Kansas City in a bad spot with a hobbled quarterback. Didn't matter. So I think that was, very underwhelming for the Houston Texans. And then Pittsburgh, now they've lost 2 big games in a row. They lose to the Philadelphia Eagles and kind of crushed by them and kind of crushed by Baltimore as well. So, it looks like these teams that could have gone into these games favored, possibly. If Pittsburgh beats Baltimore today and Houston beats the Chiefs, which was very possible, maybe they're the favorite. Now they're probably a bigger underdog than we thought. I'm looking here on my wall, the numbers over the summer. The Chiefs were a 4.5-point road favorite over the summer. That might be true next week. I haven't looked at the look-ahead line, but I wouldn't be surprised. I would have thought it would have been less, but after what we saw today, maybe they will be 4.5-point favorites on the road at Pittsburgh next week. The Ravens at the Texans, again, over the summer, they were 1.5-point favorites. It's going to be bigger than that. 6.5 maybe. So the numbers are very interesting. And then, of course, you have, I believe it's the day after Christmas, the Seahawks and the Bears. The Seahawks were a 3.5-point underdog over the summer. That's going to change. We have to see what both of these teams do on Sunday, but right now, Seattle's probably a short favorite in that game.
For Baltimore today, the studs were the studs. Lamar Jackson had himself a strong game. I heard them say on the broadcast, keeps his MVP case alive. Please. Josh Allen's the MVP. Yeah. I don't see how Lamar wins but say what you want to say on the broadcast. Derrick Henry, I've said this for weeks, months even. I don't even think Lamar Jackson's the MVP of his team. Derrick Henry was incredible once again. 162 rushing. He's amazing. He's absolutely amazing.
He's also 30 years old, which is usually kind of the turning point.
Run over everybody.
He looks better than he ever has in the last 3 years or so.
Yeah, well, put him on a good team with a good line in front of him and, good quarterback and watch what he can do, obviously. I look at Saquon Barkley. Look what he's been doing with the Eagles. Yeah. Imagine not to say he was the slouch with the Giants, but imagine spending his whole career in a situation like this. More on this Baltimore Steelers game, because I do have thoughts. They're up.